G'day, I'm E.T. here to bring you the simplest possible explanation one can think of to explain what central banks and corporate politicians have been doing in view of the massive amount of deficit now causing all sorts of problems within democracies, to actually disturb democracies and undermine the power of the government itself to do anything about much at all. The governments otherwise, in other words, have been sucked into their own bullshit and taking the people down with them. By taking interest so low, that has deterred people from putting money into banks, and it has coerced them into investing in asset inflation. The lower the interest, the greater investment in asset inflation. It is a spiraling seesaw to the bottom and endless deficit. The whole thing is planned to create endless deficit. And to say they haven't planned it then admits they don't know what they're doing. Incompetence or collusion or whatever you want to call it, it needs investigating openly by democratic systems, the only people in the world with the power to do so. It is a con, really, created through corporate politics, because corporate politics are no longer democratic politics. It's a different thing altogether. They're corporations who work for themselves like cartels do, and organise things for their own benefit, and it looks like the sprinkle of dust they get into the public looks like they're doing something for the public good, when in fact they're just buttering their own bread and eventually undermining the public. And some of us have been investigating this for many years. For 50 years I've been researching the capitalist system, and which I'm all for capitalist system, but not the way it is done now, which is basically a socialist system for the elite. Many people on the left think the capitalists are the problem. No, the elite socialists trying to create universal socialism around the globe and totalitarian systems are the problem. In fact, because of this, we have had the very worst people in politics. We've descended to the lowest possible of the low, Clinton and Trump. You can't get much lower than that. Maybe you can. Maybe the next generation will be lower and worse educated, even less able to explain things clearly to people, even more controlled by the cartels. This only time will tell. But what governments are doing now, and the paper and media is doing, is threatening the public with lower credit ratings for democracies, therefore causing the price of credit to go up, therefore impacting on government's ability to provide services for the people. But there is no actual discussion between anyone in politics or the media how to remediate this in any intelligent fashion that doesn't affect people other than in a positive and practical sense. The lack of honesty is the greatest travesty in politics today. And I say Brexit, regardless of the result, was a vote for honesty over bullshit more than anything else. Low credit ratings are inevitable under the central banking system, which aim to have people pay them to keep their money safe against the threat of global financial collapse, and quite probably raise interest in the US when the timing is right, because this is a financial war. Bond rates are already useless. People are putting money into bonds, will get no return, will actually pay for other people to keep their money safe. Money is the weapon of choice, and democracy no longer has a voice. This means blaming, like in Australia, we've got crossbenchers and people in Parliament who do not belong to corporate parties are now being blamed and will be blamed for the cause of the deficit when they've had nothing to do with the deficit whatsoever. It's the people behind the political parties, the real estate agents, and whoever's behind the big political parties and the bankers and financiers who are the serious problem for the people of the country in employment and addressing the employment deficit that's happening now. They don't want to admit it. They're running away from it. Therefore the problem's going to get worse, and then you're going to use more threatening language against the people. And Malcolm Turnbull, the would-be Prime Minister of Australia, needs to learn to cooperate and give in to the will of the people rather than go along with the same old, threaten us, all the pensioners and people who need medical care, with cutting services or some diminishing resources we have, because all the resources now needs to go paid for high rents created by the big political parties who've inflated the cost of energy, of all things, and inflated the cost of housing. And when you inflate the cost of energy and housing, you basically end up bankrupting your own country. And they've colluded on energy and housing to make sure and pass legislation so it entraps the fiscal system to the benefit of those on the insiders club, to the detriment of the rest of society and to productive processes. The governments, the politicians, think the people out there, the unwashed, the unemployed, the pensioners, are dumb and don't know what they're talking about. The question is, really, with all this university educated people in charge of finance and banks and government and bureaucracies, how come with all that massive intelligence and resources to access to knowledge have they failed so miserably to act appropriately for the people in the times when we're in, which means more and more people will become redundant because of robots and computers, and this has been known since 1957. Thank you very much. This is E.T. bringing you, I hope, some sort of insight to make you aware of what's actually going on. Thank you.